I would consider our cottage to be the garden, really,
The garden,
which is,
right.
roughly speaking, about 6 acres, I think. My own personal feeling is if somebody came and said they wanted to photograph the house and it was for legitimate reasons, I wouldn't have a problem with them coming in to the garden if they asked permission.
Hi folks, we're here at the Belladrum Estate in the Highlands today, near Inverness. You might have heard of this place. There's a large music festival held here most years called the Tartan Heart Festival, often just called Belladrum. Now, we're heading up to the large country house that is on this estate because I want to speak to them about their provisions for the right to roam in the area, make sure that they do understand that there is a right to responsible access of the countryside, to use it for recreational purposes, and therefore to use to do any of those recreational things commercially, such as flying a drone. Now, there's lots of fields around here. Some have sheep in, some don't. Can't imagine there should be any problem accessing the fields that don't have sheep in them. I don't see any crops growing today. I'm going to put in my usual disclaimer that I put in all these videos, which is to say I personally don't agree with the right to roam. It's a bit silly. If it's like a huge estate cutting across half the country, then obviously there should be some way to get across it. But this idea that estate owners, farmers, etc. can put all the money and effort into maintaining their land, and then people can just walk onto it and use it for whatever recreational purposes they want, just doesn't sit right with me. But I have to put my own opinions aside for these videos because it ain't about me. It's about making sure that people's rights aren't interfered with. I get sick of my right to fly a drone being interfered with. Now, there's an interesting crossover between these two rights, because if you've passed the CAA certification to fly drones, then you'll know that there's a rule that you cannot take off from private land or land on private land without the owner's permission. Now, that's not really true in Scotland. It might be in other parts of the UK, but in Scotland, because of the Land Reform Act, you do have a right to walk onto some private land, and there are restrictions. You can't walk into people's gardens or walk into their houses, but if there's a big field, you can walk across it. Then you can fly your drone from there. You can land your drone there. It's private land, but you can still do it. We're at the bit where the main stage of the festival is. Anyone that's been to Belladrum is probably recognising that those couple of buildings ahead of us. It would be possibly interesting for the video to walk over there and look down to where the stage is, but I wouldn't be comfortable doing that at the moment because I don't think this area would be included in any sort of reasonable right to roam. I'm just walking along this path to get to the estate, so if I start mooching around, I would kind of be shooting myself in the foot because we want to keep everything above board. However, I've just noticed you can actually stop here and see where the stage would be. Quite interesting to see this place with absolutely nothing here. Yeah, so this is obviously where most of the crowd stands, and then over there on the other side of that big tree, that's where the stage would be, and then behind there is where they have all like the, obviously the backstage area. I really want to wander over there and have a look. There's like an old-fashioned truck parked up on top of a building by the looks of it. I don't know if that's something to do with the festival. Yeah, it looks like that could well be. They have lots of interesting, quirky places for people to just go and sit and hang out at the festival. So it says Wile E. Coyote on it. Yeah, so I would imagine that's something to do with the festival. I've never actually been around here when I've been working here. I usually just stay near the stage. Well, my routine is walk around the festival, get lots and lots of pictures of people enjoying themselves. Then when the band start performing, go stand at the front of the stage, get lots of pictures and go home. Not a huge fan of photographing festivals. Worst one I've ever photographed was, well, worst one, it's not fair to say it's the worst one. Worst experience I ever had at a festival was Loch Ness, which was a big festival on the banks of Loch Ness. I think it was organised by Fatboy Slim. Anyway, went there one year for work. Obviously, I wouldn't be going. I wouldn't be going there for my own interests. Met him backstage. He was fine, in a bit of a rush, but they always are. These people. Spent most of the day there just going around photographing people. Started off fairly normal. Oh, the newspaper I used to work for, that was pretty much what they wanted. A page full of, like, you know, 2 or 3 people, little groups, 2 or 3 people hugging each other, laughing, you know, cool sunglasses, fun makeup, that sort of thing. So you walk around all day, do lots of pictures like that, and then in the evening you get the performers. Anyway, so many drunk people at that festival. Pretty much every time I put the camera up to my eye, there'd be someone jumping in front of it, giving it all the nonsense. There's so many pictures ruined. And the only way you can deal with these people is it's like, you know, oh, that's funny, mate. Oh, yeah, good one, good one. Just chill them out, get them out of the way, get your picture done and move on. But honestly, by the end of the day, I was sick of it. I was down at the front of the stage. No, I wasn't at the front of the stage. I'd come back into the crowd a bit, like off to the side, and I was going to do a picture of the stage from a distance. And straight away, as soon as the camera was up to my eye, the frame was just full of this idiot just jumping around. And I just went, get out of the way, mate. Took my picture and walked. And that was it. I was done for the day. I was so sick of drunk people by the end of that day. How people like bouncers and people that work in bars and everything can put up with drunks all day. I do not know. They're more tolerant than I am. Right. This looks like the approach to a Scottish estate house. You can kind of recognise them when you go to them quite often. I've never been to this one, but I used to go to a lot of these places for work, and you can just sort of tell the way they do the grass even. Yeah, there it is. Slow. Triplets, 5 p.m. Now, does that mean that they have triplets, young children, young triplets living here, but they're only here after 5 p.m? Or does it mean that you're not allowed to go more than 5 miles per hour, and for some reason they've put PM instead of MPH? Well, it looks like there's somebody home. didn't hear a bell inside when I pressed that. Okay, gut feeling is I'd probably have to bang on that door because I don't think that bell worked. All the cars are parked around the back, so I'd assume this is where they go in and out mostly. Ooh, I recognise that car from somewhere. The Subaru. Oh, there we go. Do we go to this door? Would it be okay for me to talk to you outside, just in case I include any of the footage? Because it's the video's themed around like the outside, the exterior.
Yeah.
Outdoors is the word I'm trying to say. It would probably make more sense if footage is outside rather than in this lovely kitchen. Would that be okay?
Sure, yeah, okay.
Cool. I'm just imagining like a lot of like video from outside and then suddenly jumping to an interior interview.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And then I can sort of include little comments or anything from the body.
So what are you doing this for?
So I run a YouTube channel.
A YouTube channel?
A YouTube channel where I do videos about countryside access rights, drone rights, that sort of thing, because lots of people, you know, they like to go out into the countryside, fly their drone and get nice pictures of beautiful houses like this. And increasingly people are finding that these rights are being interfered with. People being told that, you know, they're not allowed to access any sort of private property, any fields, anything like that, that they're not allowed.
That's against the law. I mean, to prevent people from accessing ground like that, it's merely private houses, gardens, and their curtilages, which are.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So you know, I'm surprised to hear people doing it. Perhaps they just don't know the law.
That I think is probably a very succinct summary of it. So for instance, oh dear me, So for instance, if I turned up here today and said, "Hal, this is a beautiful house. Would you mind me taking some drone pictures of it?" Is that something that you would allow? Would you expect other owners of country estates to allow it, or is that something you consider an unreasonable use of the access right?
It's certainly not an unreasonable request. I mean, my understanding of the access rights would be that it was that if you were standing within the curtilage of the house, it wouldn't be your right to film it. But on the other hand, if you were standing out with the curtilage and in the field and you wanted to film it with a drone, I don't think the law has yet taken that into account.
Okay.
On a personal basis, it wouldn't worry me at all.
Right.
But I can see from a security point of view, it might worry some people.
I can see how that would be possibly a factor. Yeah. Where would you consider the curtilage of this property to be?
Well, I would consider our curtilage to be the garden. Really,
the garden,
which is,
right.
Roughly speaking, about 6 acres, I think. Okay,
right. Yeah. So people would be expected to stay outside that area and take the drone off from there.
My own personal feeling is if somebody came and said they wanted to photograph the house and it was for legitimate reasons, I wouldn't have a problem with them coming in to the garden if they asked permission. But
that's so wonderful to hear.
But my understanding of the law is that if somebody wanted to have recourse to the law, then you would need permission to film from their garden or curtilage.
I believe that is spot on what the law is. Yeah. What, for instance, there's a sign marked like private road.
Private road. It says that's to do with vehicles. So
right.
Because So what happens is a lot of people come and walk here, and we encourage people to come and walk here. It's in lots of guides and things like that. And there's a cafe at the farm.
Oh, right.
Or it's a new cafe, but it's it's very popular with dog walkers, Belladrum, and some lovely paths that are available. And but parking, if you get sort of random parking everywhere, it becomes a problem for everybody, including the people who are walking. So what we've done in the past, and we may need to update our signage, is to direct people to certain places to park. And I think we're just in the process, because the cafe has arrived, of altering that to encouraging people to park at the farm, where there's now proper parking, which there wasn't before. We encouraged them to park at the road end at what we call the Canadian Road, which is just up the road from here. But there's not an awful lot of space there, so it's fine if people continue to do that. But it's better that they're so the sign that says that only permitted vehicles have access does not obviously apply to walkers who have access everywhere, other than as previously detailed in people's gardens and whatever.
Indeed.
It's merely to try and control that, because it is actually a very popular place to come and walk. Is to try and keep a control on where people park.
All right. What would you consider a reasonable use of the land? Somebody, for instance, walking up your driveway, how far would you say it would be okay for them to come before they were encroaching upon the curtilage of the property?
Well, it's fairly obvious that it's a driveway to a private house.
Indeed.
So I would have thought, to the gate into the garden, which is just down the drive there.
Right. Okay.
But as I said, if people respect private property rights and say, well, could we come in and look around the garden and the house? Well, I mean, not a problem at all. It's just if the whole world feel they can come in and just help themselves, you could end up with a slightly difficult situation.
So basically, common courtesy goes a long way.
Yeah, it's
Indeed.
just common courtesy, really. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that is wonderful to hear. So many of these videos that I do, people will make up all sorts of laws, and they're quite unreasonable about saying you can't do this, you can't do that. So it's nice to hear someone who just.
Actually, I thought in the land, I think there's been a lot of terrible land reform brought in, and I think that at the moment the government are doing their best to ruin all forms of residential accommodation in terms of rentals and whatever. They're making life very difficult for both the landlord and the person wanting to rent. But one of the things that I most value from land reform has actually been the right to roam and access. I myself have spent a lot of time on a horse riding through the hills, and the laws that allow people on horses or bikes or on foot to walk through the hills have been of great assistance, actually, and unnecessary lock gates have been unlocked, and or the ability to bypass them has been put in, and I think that's been a great thing, because although actually, as you probably know, there was never any law of trespass in Scotland.
Indeed.
In fact, you could interdict people individually from going on your land, but not many people bothered. I think it was a good thing to have it enshrined on the positive side, that people could knew that they were able to go without any redress. And actually, I find that people are people usually stick to paths anyway, because they prefer to, it's easier.
Yeah.
And B, people are actually normally very polite, and walking groups, even though they don't have to, very often get in touch in advance and say, can we come and walk here, and which would be their right anyway. But it's nice that they're so courteous and that they do that.
All right. One thing I'd like to ask your opinion on, some estates it's almost like they're trying to find a way around the land access rules by putting a path somewhere that people maybe wouldn't want to walk. and then they
Right.
get that path kind of established with there's like an inspector that comes around to make sure
Yeah.
that land access rights
Yeah.
are being respected. They'll put a path there where there's nothing interesting to see. You're just walking through hedgerows, sort of thing, or
Yeah.
between hedgerows. Do you think that's respecting people's responsible use of private land?
I haven't come across that, but
Okay.
but I'm, if I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. I mean, I can see why people would want to divert a well-used path that runs through their farm, buildings, or right past their front door, or whatever. In fact, the local council here were proposing to designate a path that was a core path that ran right through some people's gardens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some neighbours' gardens, and in that instance, I felt those neighbours were absolutely right to say we really don't want this.
Of course,
because it would have been a severe infringement on their privacy. So you can see where there are instances where an appeal to change the route of a path is perfectly fair and just.
Yeah.
And not trying to spoil things for walkers, just saying that we're all entitled to, a bit of privacy.
Indeed.
But in terms of people doing it specifically to put people off, walking, or just to frustrate the intentions of the law, I haven't come across that, so I wouldn't. I've got no experience of it, but obviously it's sort of going against the spirit of the legislation.
Okie dokie. Right. I think I've taken up enough of your time there. That's the problem with interviews where the person actually knows what they're talking about. They're very short interviews. Right. A lot of interviews I have to actually challenge people on their understanding of the rights, but you obviously are more than aware of the situation. What's your name, sir?
Joe Gibbs.
Joe Gibbs. Gibbs.
Yeah.
And Joe, Joe.
J-O-E, yeah.
J-O-E.
Belladrum Estate.
Lovely. Joe, thank you very much for your time.
Not at all.
Appreciate
Not at all.
it. Lovely dogs
sorry,
as well.
what was your name again?
Andrew Smith.
Andrew Smith. And do you do, it's on a YouTube channel, or?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It will be up probably in a few days.
Yeah.
If you just search for, I'll probably put Belladrum in the title or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
Just search for that, and you should
Yeah.
find it. There's a thing when you search on YouTube, you can
I just search with your name, do I? Or
You wouldn't find it with my name,
Okay.
but you'd find it if you search for Belladrum and then organise the search results by most recent, and you should find it there.
come up under Belladrum.
Yeah, because obviously you'll find a lot about the festival on there.
Oh, yes.
That's
Quite,
from other channels.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't really have 23,000 people coming to your farm every year and object to public access.
No, indeed. Anyway, Joe, thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
I appreciate
not at
it, sir. Have a good day.
Bye, Andrew.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Well, isn't that a breath of fresh air? What a wonderful chap. You could kind of tell from the way he answered the door, very lively way of answering the door, that he was going to be a good sort. Right, so he said that he felt that the reasonable distance to walk up this driveway would be to the gate. Now, I didn't actually see a gate on the way up. There's a gate there. That's the gate into the field, though, so that's not what he's referring to. However, okay, so just out of interest, we're not doing any shenanigans with this guy, because it would be absurd to do that, because he's very reasonable. But I would think you could quite lawfully walk up here and along the edge of this field. Even though there is a crop in the field, you wouldn't be interfering with the crop going along to the edge of there. Just out of interest, let's have a look. As long as the ground doesn't get too soggy. Because I've had that situation happen before when when I was accessing somewhere and I ended up about 10 inches deep in mud. yeah, so if you went along to the end of that field, you would, or of this field, you would definitely have good line of sight to fly the drone anywhere around the building. But you wouldn't need to do that, because you'd go and knock on the door like any reasonable human being and ask the chap, could I please take some drone pictures of your beautiful house? And instead of freaking out and phoning the police, he'd say, of course you can. Why not? We have a beautiful house and we're happy to let people take some lovely pictures of it. So that is going to bring us to the end of our Belladrum Estate video. I'll probably come back here at some point in future, say a quick hello to Joe and do some nice drone video and pictures. It's too wet today to do it. I mean, it's not too wet to take the drone up, but it's just pictures wouldn't look very good. So yeah, I think we'll leave it at that today. I'm quite interested to just have a walk down there, but I'm also quite interested in just going home. Although I can't go home because I've just remembered I've got another job to do after this. Oh well. Cannot complain. There are worse things to do than walking around the Scottish countryside. Yeah, so that brings us to the end of our Belladrum Estate video. Absolute wonderful response from Joe there. It's so nice to hear not only that he knows the law, but he agrees with it. Even if I don't agree with it, maybe I should take a page out of Joe's book and rethink my stance. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video. Cheerio!